My name is Miriam Hale, and I was 95 years old when I died. I do not say that lightly. I do not say it for attention. I say it because I made a vow in a place where vows cannot be broken, and I have come back to keep it. There are things a woman can carry to the grave, and there are things that follow her beyond it. This followed me. I felt my heart stop in the quiet of an ordinary afternoon. No thunder, no warning, just a stillness so deep it swallowed sound itself. One breath, and then no breath at all. And in that silence, he called my name in the dark. That is the only way I can say it. He called my name in the dark. And when I turned toward that voice, I crossed a threshold I had spent my entire life pretending I understood. I died, and I stood before Jesus. Even now, I tremble. Not because of fear alone, but because of what he showed me. Because what he revealed was not meant to be comfortable. It was not meant to be easy. It was meant to be spoken. Keep speaking. Those were his words. Not once, but again and again, as if heaven itself was pressing the command into my bones. Keep speaking, and so I am. Though my voice feels unworthy, though my heart still shakes beneath the weight of it, I am speaking because the truth must be told. What he showed me was not just about me. It was about a people the world has seen, but never truly seen, a people spoken about, but rarely listened to. And what I am about to say, the world is not ready to hear. But readiness is no longer the question. Obedience is. He called my name in the dark, and when he did, everything I thought I knew began to burn away. So listen carefully, not to me, but to what I was shown, because the truth must be told. And I have no more time to remain silent. I lived a quiet life in the end, not the kind of quiet that brings peace, but the kind that settles after everything has already happened. 95 years is a long time to watch the world change, long enough to forget what it once felt like, to believe. My mornings began the same way, a slow rising from a body that had grown tired of carrying me, the soft creak of wooden floors beneath my feet, a kettle warming on the stove, always before the sun fully arrived. I would sit by the window with my tea, hands wrapped around the cup as if it could hold me together, and I would watch cars passing, people hurrying, faces lit by things that could not love them back. And I would wonder, when did it all become so distant? When did we stop listening, not to each other, but to something deeper? I had lived through wars, through movements, through moments the world called history. I saw people rise with hope in their eyes and fall with silence in their hearts. I saw truth spoken and then slowly buried, not all at once. No, never all at once. Truth is never stolen loudly. It is softened, reshaped, forgotten in pieces. And by the time you notice, it is already gone. That thought stayed with me, like a quiet shadow that never left the room, even in stillness. I felt it, a weight I could not name, a question I could not fully ask. Something had been lost, not misplaced, not misunderstood, lost, and not just in the world, but in us. There were moments late in the afternoon when the light would stretch across the walls just right, and something inside me would stir, not memory, not quite, more like recognition trying to return, but I could never reach it. I would sit there, staring into nothing, feeling as though I was standing at the edge of a truth that refused to reveal itself. He called my name in the dark. I did not understand it then. I had not yet heard the voice, but something in me was already listening, waiting. There is a kind of weariness that comes with age, but this was different. This was not the body growing old. This was the soul, remembering something it had been taught to forget. And I began to feel it more often, in silence, in stillness, in the spaces between my thoughts. A quiet knowing that something important had been buried beneath generations of noise, something sacred, something alive, something the world had learned to ignore, and I had no idea that I was about to be shown exactly what it was. The truth must be told. Even before I knew the truth, something inside me was already preparing to speak it. It came without announcement, no warning carved into the air, no voice to prepare me, just a single moment that divided everything I had ever known from everything I was about to become. I remember the light in the room that afternoon, soft, gentle, almost sacred in its stillness, the kind of light that makes you believe nothing will ever change. I was sitting in my chair, hands resting where time had placed them, when something shifted, not outside me, inside, a tightening deep in my chest. Not sharp, not violent, but absolute, like a door, closing. My breath faltered, then returned, shallow, uncertain, and then again, but weaker. The room did not move, yet it began to feel farther away. The edges of everything softened, as though the world itself was loosening its hold on me. I tried to breathe deeper, but my body no longer obeyed. It was as if I had already begun leaving before I understood I was going. Time slowed, not in seconds, but in awareness. Each heartbeat became a distant echo, each breath a fading thread, and then silence. Not the silence of a quiet room, but the silence of absence. My heart stopped. I felt it, not as pain, but as a sudden, complete stillness. And in that stillness, I expected fear, but it did not come. Instead, there was a pause, a sacred pause, as if creation itself was holding its breath. And then I was no longer inside my body. I did not rise the way one rises from sleep. I simply was elsewhere, aware, present, unbound. I saw myself there in the chair, still, fragile, a body that had carried 95 years, now empty of its occupant. And I felt something I cannot fully explain, not grief, not shock, but a quiet detachment, as if I had been gently released from something I had worn for far too long. The room remained, but I was no longer part of it. Sound disappeared, weight disappeared, time disappeared, and then it began. A pull, soft at first, like a current beneath still water, then stronger, steady, unavoidable, drawing me forward. There was no ground beneath me, yet I moved. There was no wind, yet I was carried. And ahead of me, the darkness was not empty. It was alive with something unseen. And from within it, a glow began to emerge. Faint at first, then growing, not a harsh light, but a living one. Warm, calling, recognizing me before I recognized it. And in that moment, something inside me trembled, not in fear, but in knowing. He called my name in the dark. I heard it, not with ears, but with everything I was, a calling that did not ask for permission. It simply drew me closer. The light expanded, stretching, opening like a passage that had always been there, waiting. And as I moved toward it, I felt the last threads of fear dissolve. Completely, there was no pain, no regret, no resistance, only surrender. A surrender so complete, it felt like returning to something I had always belonged to, but had forgotten. The world behind me faded, not as loss, but as something gently released, and the light welcomed me. Not as a stranger, but as one who had finally come home. He called my name in the dark, and this time I did not hesitate. I followed, because something deep within me knew this was not the end, this was the beginning of truth. And the truth was waiting inside the light. The truth must be told. The light did not blind me, it received me. As I moved closer, it did not grow harsh or overwhelming. It softened, as though it knew exactly how much I could bear. It opened, not like a door made by hands, but like something alive, unfolding. And when I crossed into it, I understood. Light is not empty. Light remembers. It held me, not as an object, but as something known, something recognized, something that had always belonged there. He called my name in the dark, and now the darkness was gone, replaced by a radiance that did not come from one place, but from everywhere at once. There were no shadows, no corners for fear to hide, only presence, only fullness, only a quiet, living brilliance. And the air, if I can even call it air, it moved like music. Not sound that entered the ear, but sound that entered the soul. It passed through me. And as it did, it awakened something ancient inside my being, something I had not felt since before I knew how to forget. Every note was a memory, every movement a recognition. I did not hear it. I remembered it, and I began to understand. This place was not foreign, it was familiar, not in the way of memory, but in the way of origin. I was not discovering it. Why, I was returning, and I was not alone. There were others, not standing as bodies stand, but present, luminous, alive in a way that had nothing to do with flesh. Some felt close to me, not because I recognized their faces, but because I recognized their essence. A knowing passed between us. No words, no introductions, only connection, pure, immediate, complete. There was no need to speak. Nothing was hidden, nothing was misunderstood. And within that presence, I felt something I had never fully known on earth: belonging, not earned, not questioned, not fragile, absolute. It wrapped around me like truth finally finding its place. And love, it was everywhere. Not the kind of love that comes and goes, not the kind that depends on circumstance, but something deeper, steady, unchanging, unconditional. It did not ask me to become worthy. It revealed that I had always been seen. And in that love, something inside me began to dissolve. Regret, fear. Every weight I had carried across my year fell away without effort, as though they had never truly belonged to me. Time no longer moved. There was no past, no future, only presence, a now so complete. It needed nothing else. And within that stillness, I began to feel it, a shift, subtle at first, like the air itself becoming aware of something greater approaching. The light around me deepened, not dimming, but intensifying with purpose. The music within the atmosphere softened, as though making room, and every presence, every soul turned their attention in the same direction, not with movement, but with knowing. And I felt it too. A drawing, not like the pull that brought me here, but something more intentional, more personal, as if the light itself was preparing me. My awareness sharpened, not with tension, but with reverence. Because something or someone was near. He called my name in the dark, and now I felt that same calling again, closer, clearer, not echoing through distance, but arising from the very center of this place. The atmosphere responded, not with fear, but with honor. And I understood, without being told, without needing explanation. I was about to stand before him, the one who had called me, the one who had brought me here, the one who sees without distortion, the one who knows without error. And in that moment, even in a place without fear, I trembled, not because I was afraid of him, but because I knew. Nothing within me could remain hidden, nothing false could survive his presence, and still I felt no desire to turn away, only a deep, undeniable longing to move closer, to finally see, to finally understand. The light parted, not in division, but in invitation, and I followed because the truth, Gag, was no longer approaching. It was waiting. The truth must be told. The light did not simply open, it revealed him. There are no words that can contain what I saw, and yet I must try, because I promised I would not remain silent. He did not arrive. He was already there, as if everything I had entered door was already filled with him, Jesus, not as I had imagined in the small frames of my understanding, but as presence itself, radiant, yet gentle, powerful, yet without force. There was no distance between us, and yet I felt the vastness of eternity in the space that held him. And when my awareness met his, everything in me became visible, not exposed in shame, but revealed in truth. My life unfolded. Not in fragments, not in memories I chose to recall, but all at once. Every moment I had lived, every word I had spoken, every silence I had hidden behind, every kindness, every failure, every unseen intention beneath what others believed they saw. It moved through me like light passing through glass. Nothing distorted, nothing softened, nothing exaggerated, just truth. And I felt it, the weight of it, not as condemnation, but as clarity so pure. It stripped away every illusion I had ever carried about myself. I saw where I had loved well and where I had withheld it. I saw where I had chosen comfort when I should have chosen courage. I saw the small moments, the ones I thought were forgotten, and realized nothing is ever lost, nothing is ever unseen. And in that seeing, I expected judgment, I expected distance. I expected something in him to turn away from me, but he did not. There was no rejection in him, only understanding, only a love so complete. It did not ignore truth, it fulfilled it, and that broke me. Not into despair, but into surrender, because I realized I had never truly seen myself until I was seen by him. He called my name in the dark, and now I understood who had called me. The same voice that had drawn me through death now stood before me, not as a stranger, but as the one who had always known me. There were no spoken words, no movement of lips, and yet he spoke, not into my ears, but into the center of my being, a knowing placed inside me, clearer than any sound I had ever heard. You were brought here for a reason. It was not a question. It was not a suggestion. It was truth. And as that truth settled within me, I felt something awaken, not new, but remembered, a purpose I had never fully lived, now standing before me in its fullness. I felt small, not in worth, but in awareness, aware of how little I had understood, of how much had remained unseen, of how deeply I had needed this moment, and still he did not overwhelm me. He did not press his presence upon me. He allowed me to stand, to receive, to become aware at the pace of truth. And then it came again, the command, gentle yet unshakable. Keep speaking. It moved through me like fire, not burning to destroy, but burning to reveal. Keep speaking. I felt it anchor itself within me, like a vow already spoken before I knew I had made it. And I understood. This was not just an encounter. This was a commissioning. I had not been brought here to simply witness. I had been brought here to carry, to return, to speak what I would be shown, even if my voice trembled, even if I was not believed, even if the weight of it followed me for the rest of my days. The truth must be told, and then he showed me why, not with explanation, but with vision, a depth opening beyond the moment, a revelation forming, not around me, but through me. And I knew what I had seen so far was only the beginning, because the truth he was about to reveal was not just about my life. It was about the world. It was about a people. And once it was given, I would never be able to forget it. He called my name in the dark. And now I stood in the light, ready to receive what most are not prepared to hear, because obedience had already chosen me. What he showed me next did not arrive as information. It arrived as unveiling, as if a veil that had covered something ancient, something sacred was being gently but completely lifted. And I saw them, not as the world describes them, not as history has reduced them, but as they are seen from the side of truth. Black people. But even as I say those words, I feel how small they are, how insufficient they are to carry what I was shown. Because what I saw was not a category, it was a calling. It was not defined by skin, but by something far deeper, something carried, preserved, endured. And as the vision unfolded, I felt both sorrow and awe. Sorrow for what had been done, awe for what had survived. He called my name in the dark, and now he was showing me what the world had chosen not to see. I saw history, but not the version written in books. I saw it as it happened. Layers upon layers of distortion, truth slowly reshaped. Not erased all at once, but altered. I softened, redirected, until what remained no longer resembled its origin. I saw identities taken and renamed, stories broken apart and retold without their soul, and I understood. This was not случай. This was not confusion. This was concealment, because what they carried was never meant to be lost. It was meant to be protected. They were chosen. The words did not come as sound, but as certainty, not chosen for dominance, not chosen to stand above others, but chosen to carry something the world would one day need to remember. This isn't just about race, it's about restoration. And as those words settled within me, the vision deepened. I saw generations walking through suffering that should have destroyed them. Yet it did not. I saw chains, not just of iron, but of perception. Limitations placed upon them, definitions forced upon them, and still something within them remained untouched, unbroken, alive, a strength that did not come from circumstance, but from source, a resilience that could not be explained by survival alone because it was rooted in something eternal. And I began to weep, not with tears, but with the weight of understanding, because I realized what the world had called weakness was never weakness. What had been dismissed was never insignificant. What had been buried was never gone. It was hidden, protected, waiting. They tried to erase them because they feared them. Not fear of power as the world defines it, but fear of what they carried, memory, spiritual memory, a connection to something ancient, something pure, something that could not be controlled. And so it was covered, undistorted, fragmented, not completely destroyed, because it could not be, but hidden enough that even those who carried it would begin to forget. You were brought here to remember. The words rose within me like a command, but also like mercy. because this was not an accusation. It was an invitation, not to divide, but to restore what had been lost, to restore what had been silenced, to restore what had been misunderstood. This isn't just about race, it's about restoration. I saw it clearly then. This was not about elevating one above another. It was about healing something that had been broken across all of humanity. Because when truth is hidden from one, it is distorted for all. And what had been done had not only affected those who carried it, it had shaped the entire world. A world built on partial truths cannot stand in fullness. And so the revelation was not just about them, it was about everyone, because their restoration was tied to the restoration of all. The truth must be told. And I felt the weight of that truth settle into me, not as burden, but as responsibility, because what I had been shown was not meant to remain in silence. It was meant to awaken, to stir something long buried, not just in history, but in the soul. They were chosen, not for pride, not for separation, but for purpose, a purpose that had endured through suffering, through distortion, through silence, waiting for a time when it would be remembered again. And as the vision began to close, I understood something that has never left me. The world does not fear what it understands. It fears what it cannot control. And what they carry was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be revealed. Gently, truthfully, in love, because restoration does not come through force. It comes through remembering. He called my name in the dark, and what he showed me was not meant to divide the world. It was meant to heal it, but only if it is received. And just when I thought the weight of what I had seen would settle, it began to move. The vision did not end. It expanded, like a horizon pulling back to reveal what had always been waiting beyond it. And I saw the world again, but not as it is now, as it is becoming. There was a trembling beneath everything, not destruction, but disruption, like the foundations of something long-standing, beginning to crack, not from weakness, but from truth pressing upward. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. The words did not come as warning, but as certainty. And I saw it, not chaos without purpose, but a shaking with intention. Systems once trusted, beginning to fail. Voices once ignored, beginning to rise. Questions once silenced, beginning to echo across nations. And within that shaking, I saw people waking, not all at once, but one by one, like lights being lit in a darkened landscape. Eyes opening, not just physically, but inwardly, a remembering, slow at first, then undeniable. I saw men and women, young and old, pausing in the middle of their lives, as if something invisible had touched them, a realization that what they had been told was not the whole story, and something within them began to stir. You were brought here to remember. And the words moved through them, as they had through me, and I saw chains, not only of iron, but of thought, beliefs inherited, without question, identities accepted, without understanding, and those chains began to fall, not violently, but deliberately, as truth replaced illusion, as awareness replaced conditioning, as something ancient rose to the surface once more. They were chosen, and I saw it clearly now, not as a statement of separation, but as a point of ignition, because as they began to remember, others began to awaken, not through force, not through domination, but through presence, through truth lived rather than declared, through a light that could no longer be hidden. And I saw leaders, but not the kind the world is used to. not elevated by power, but by alignment. Ah, men and women whose authority came from within, from a connection that could not be manufactured, were only remembered. They did not seek to control, they sought to restore. And people followed, not out of fear, but because something within them recognized something real. I saw communities forming, not around division, but around understanding. Differences no longer used as weapons, but understood as pieces of a greater whole. And for a moment, I saw what the world could be when truth is no longer hidden. Unity, not forced, but revealed. Not the erasure of identities, but the honoring of it. Each part in its place, each voice in its truth, all moving towards something greater than themselves. The world must be shaken before it can be restored, and the shaking continued. But now, it was no longer frightening because I could see its purpose. What was false could not remain. What was built on distortion could not stand. And what was true began to rise. I saw tears, but not only of sorrow, tears of recognition, of release, of finally seeing what had been hidden in plain sight. And I understood. The struggle had never been meaningless. The pain had never been wasted. It had been preparation, refinement, a shaping of something strong enough and to carry what was coming. Because restoration requires vessels that can endure truth. They were chosen, not to escape the fire, but to walk through it and emerge carrying something the world had lost. And as the vision reached its fullness, I felt something rise within me. Not fear, not confusion, but hope. A quiet, steady, undeniable hope. Because for the first time, I saw beyond the brokenness, beyond the distortion, beyond the forgetting. I saw a future where remembering would no longer be rare, where truth would no longer be hidden, where the light I had entered would begin to touch the earth again, not all at once, but enough to change everything. He called my name in the dark, and now I understood. He was calling many, one by one, heart by heart, across every place, across every people, drawing them toward the same awakening. And the question was no longer whether it would happen. The question was who would respond, because the time of silence is ending, and the time of remembering has already begun. And then, without warning, I was pulled back, not gently, not slowly, but suddenly, as if the weight of the world remembered me and claimed me again. The light did not disappear. It receded. Like something holy, stepping back, not because it was gone, but because I was being sent. And the next thing I felt was heaviness, crushing, immediate, undeniable heaviness. My chest burning, my lungs struggling, air forcing its way back into a body that had already forgotten how to hold it. Sound returned, loud, disordered, unnatural, not like the living music I had just left, but sharp, mechanical, broken into fragments. I could not move. I could not speak, but I knew I was back. A hospital room, cold light above me, voices moving around me, but none reaching me, hands touching, adjusting, reacting, and I lay there, trapped again in flesh after having known what it felt like to be free. He called my name in the dark, and I wanted to go back, not out of escape, but because nothing here felt real anymore. Everything seemed smaller, dimmer, as if the world I had returned to was only a shadow of what I had just seen. Time came rushing back, pain came rushing back, limitations returned all at once, and with them a silence inside me, not of peace, but of separation. Days passed, or maybe hours, Time no longer made sense the way it once did, but one thing remained, clearer than anything else. What I had seen had not faded, it had not softened, it had not become dreamlike. It remained sharp, alive, present within me, as if the light itself had followed me back, and I knew I could not keep it inside. The truth must be told, so I tried. At first, gently, carefully, I spoke of the light, of the peace, of standing before him, but their eyes told me everything. Confusion, polite dismissal, the kind of listening that is not truly listening. I spoke of what I was shown, of the revelation, of the people, of the truth that had been hidden, and something shifted, not in understanding, but in distance. They did not argue, they did not confront, they simply withdrew, as if what I carried made them uncomfortable in a way they could not explain, and I felt it, that quiet separation that forms when truth touches something unready. I was no longer just an old woman who had returned from the edge of death. I had become something else, something difficult to place, something easier to dismiss than to consider. And so I was left alone, not completely, but in the way that matters. Alone with what I knew, alone with what I had seen, alone with a truth that would not allow me to rest. And then the resistance began. Not loud, not obvious, but present. Subtle interruptions. Moments where my thoughts would scatter, just as I tried to recall the fullness of what I had been shown. A heaviness that would settle over me when I prepared to speak it clearly. Not fear, but pressure, as if something unseen preferred my silence, as if something resisted the movement of this truth into the world. They don't want this truth to spread. I did not hear those words, but I felt them in the weight, in the resistance, in the quiet attempts to make me doubt what I knew with absolute clarity. And for a moment, I struggled, not with the truth itself, but with the cost of carrying it. Because to speak it was to step outside of comfort, to be misunderstood, to be questioned, to be seen as something other than what I had been. But then I remembered, not with effort, but with certainty, his presence, his gaze. The way nothing in me could hide, and yet nothing in me was rejected. And the command returned, not as force, but as fire. Keep speaking. It rose within me again, stronger than the resistance, stronger than the doubt, stronger than the silence surrounding me. Keep speaking, and I understood. This was never going to be easy. Truth never is, because truth does not ask permission, it reveals, and revelation always disrupts what is comfortable. The truth must be told, even if I stand alone, even if I am not believed, even if the world turns its eyes away, because it is not ready to see. I made a vow in a place where vows are not broken, and I will not break it here. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, and now I will continue to answer, no matter the cost, because silence is no longer an option. And now I speak to you. Not as someone above you, but as someone who has seen and can no longer remain silent. Because this is no longer just my story. It never was. What I was shown was not given to me alone. It was given to be carried, to reach you. Yes, you. The one listening right now, the one who did not случай find this moment, but was drawn to it. He called my name in the dark, and I believe he is calling yours as well. There is something happening, not only in the world around you, but within you, a stirring, a quiet unease, a question you cannot fully silence. That is not случай. That is not imagination. That is the beginning of awakening. And you must understand this with clarity and without fear. There is a war, not the kind fought with weapons, but one fought with truth. A war over what you believe, a war over what you remember, a war over who you are and who you have been told you are. And most people will not recognize it because it does not announce itself loudly. It hides in comfort, it hides in distraction, it hides in narratives that feel easier to accept than truth that demands transformation. But you have heard this, which means something in you is ready. The truth must be told. And now that you have heard it, you cannot pretend you have not. This is the moment where choice begins. Not a distant choice, not a someday decision, but now. Will you seek what is true, even if it unsettles you? Will you question what you have been given, even if it costs you comfort? Will you listen, not just with your mind, but with that deeper place within you that recognizes truth when it is spoken? Because awakening is not passive. It does not happen to those who wait, it happens to those who respond. The time is now. Choose. Choose to remember instead of forgetting. Choose to seek instead of settling. Choose to awaken instead of remaining asleep. And understand this: what I was shown was not meant to divide you from others. It was meant to restore what has been broken in all of us. This isn't just about race, it's about restoration, a restoration of truth, a restoration of identity, a restoration of connection to something greater than what this world has taught you to see. And that restoration begins within. It begins when you turn not outward first, but inward, toward truth, toward awareness, toward the voice that has been trying to reach you long before this moment. He called my name in the dark, and when I answered, everything changed. You are being given that same invitation, not forced, not demanded, but offered. And what you do with it matters, because the time we are in is not ordinary. The shaking has begun, and only what is rooted in truth will remain. If you are here listening to this, then you are not случай. You were brought here for this moment, for this choice. And here, on Minutes Beyond Life, this is why we speak. Not to entertain, not to impress, but to awaken, to remind, to call back what has been lost. So I ask you, with all the love and all the urgency I carry, return. Return to truth. Return to what is real. I return to the place within you that still recognizes light. And above all, return to Christ, not to religion without understanding, not to ritual without heart, but to Him, to His words, to His life, to the truth carried in the Gospels that has never changed, even when the world has. Because in Him there is no distortion, no manipulation, no hidden agenda, only truth. And truth is what will set you free. Keep speaking, that is what I was told, and this is me obeying. Now, the choice is yours. And now, there is nothing left for me to add, only something left for you to feel. Because what I have carried was never meant to end with me. It was never meant to remain a story. It is a mirror, and whether you turn toward it or away from it does not change what it reflects. He called my name in the dark, and one day He will call yours. Not as a threat, Mogip, but as a certainty, because there is a moment waiting for all of us, where breath will fall silent, where time will loosen its grip, where everything we thought was solid will fade like mist before the morning. And in that moment, there will be no titles, no roles, no distractions to hide behind, only truth, pure, undeniable, unavoidable. The veil will lift, not partially, not slowly, but completely. And what has been hidden will no longer be hidden. What has been ignored will no longer be ignorable. What has been forgotten will stand before you as something you were always meant to remember. You were brought here to remember, not случай, not by accident, but with intention. Even this moment, even this message is part of that remembering. And I say this gently, but truthfully, you cannot return to who you were before hearing this. Something has already shifted, even if you do not yet understand it, even if you try to dismiss it, even if you tell yourself it is just a story, something deeper than thought has already been touched, because truth does not need permission to enter. It simply waits to be received. They were chosen, not for separation, dabas, but for restoration. And that restoration does not belong to one people alone. It calls to all. Because when one part of truth is restored, the whole begins to awaken. This isn't just about race, it's about restoration. A restoration of what it means to be human, a restoration of what it means to belong, a restoration of what it means to know why you are here. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. And the shaking is already here. You can feel it in the uncertainty, in the questions, in the quiet sense that something is changing. But the shaking is not the end, it is the revealing. And what is revealed depends on what you are willing to see. The truth must be told, and now it has been placed before you. Not forced, not demanded, but offered. And with it comes the question that cannot be avoided. Not later, not someday, now. The time is now. Choose. Will you awaken, or will you remain asleep? Will you seek what is real, or hold tightly to what is comfortable? Will you remember, or continue to forget? I cannot answer that for you. I was only sent to speak. Keep speaking. That is what I was told, and I have. Through trembling, through doubt, through the weight of knowing what this truth carries, I have spoken. Because I made a vow in the presence of the one who sees all things clearly, and vows made in that light do not fade in the shadows of this world. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. Now, the silence between us is yours to fill, not with noise, not with distraction, but with decision, because one day you will stand where I stood, and when that moment comes, there will be no questions left to ask, only truth to stand within. So I leave you with this, not as an ending, but as something that will follow you. Long after this moment fades, the truth must be told. The time is now. Choose. And when the light calls you, will you recognize it, or will you turn away and remain asleep?